Howdy, it's Mike again, and this is going to be a cool one. Probably one that you should revisit on a regular basis. This is going to be on follow through days, a very, very important concept that Bill came up with. Bill O'Neil, founder of IBD, um, came up with. I'm not sure what year, but my guess is before I was born. I think I have some of his notes, original notes around here somewhere. I was looking for them. I couldn't find them. That I've got so many bill boxes that I just need to really kind of organize so I can find them when I need the things. But anyways, this is a concept that he came up with long ago, and he put it in his first edition of his book, How to Make Money in Stocks. And I wanted to get out all the versions that I have before we started to let you know that Bill would change over the years with his rules. So if you look closely at like the first version, this version, and as well as then you move on to my favorite version, near and dear to my heart. This is the second version. There's slight changes in there. In fact, this is my copy that he gave me of when we were working together, and Justin and some other folks as well as of working on changing this to the third edition, which is this one, and then ultimately, of course, we worked on the fourth edition together too. But this, I just love it. It's one of my favorite things. It's got all of his notes in it for all the things that he wanted to change. And you can see that, like, hold on, let me go to like just the front inside cover, like all this stuff that he wanted to change. In like almost every page, there's notes and notes everywhere. Um, you know, I really, it's not my position to like, sit and share all of the, like copies of this, but just letting you know, like, some things in life are priceless, and this is one of those things. I think very, very cool. But anyways, the point of me digging these out was to just let you know that it's okay for change. Like Bill would live in the moment and say, these are the rules, but that meant those are the rules right then, how he was looking at them. And so that's very important for the follow for everything, but for the follow through day concept, because I'm going to walk you through how he changed it, how I was involved with changing things, as well as how I look at follow throughs now, which is differently than how he would if he were still with us. So we'll get into all of this, and this will probably be one of a series on follow through days, because it's really worthwhile to go through a lot of different examples, and ones that work, ones that fail, what to do in each situation. So this one is going to be kind of more of the basics of it and a little bit of the history. And then in future weeks or future episodes, we will, just tackle just more examples of it, because you can never look at too many of them. And in fact, back in 2011, Charles Harris, Justin, and I created Market School, and we made tons of changes, doing a whole bunch of original research during that. And IBD's got a home study for that. I don't think they give out these books anymore, for whatever reason. But in here we had all these examples that we would cover, because we Chuck and I and Justin would go around and teach these workshops around the country. It's so much fun. On Saturday we would do a chart school, all day chart school, and then on Sunday we would do an all day market school. And by the end of it, people would be falling asleep. It was a lot of info, but we did so much original research in here and all these bottoms that it's worth studying every single follow through day. I mean, the three of us did. I mean, we looked at literally every single follow through day and all the history of the NASDAQ, and studied them to get a sense for what worked and what didn't. And we went over a ton of the examples during that home study. But anyways, that's enough on that. Let's get into, what is a follow through day, and why do you need it? And so this concept came about when Bill was trying to pick market bottoms. And every person who gets involved with the market, at first you kind of, I think the typical thing is you learn how to buy stocks, you make some mistakes, you kind of go along in your learning cycle, and then you come to this realization that how important the general market is. And we talked about that in the last episode, I think it was 9, when I went over the 21 day. I would highly suggest watching that, because this one kind of dovetails into that, because you want to use, at least for me, I want to use the 21 day along with the follow through day. It's not one or the other. It's both. And frankly, if I only had one, I'd go with the 21 day. But the follow through day is a very, very important concept, and one that you need to know cold. Like it's very important. So the concept was, he was trying to, okay, so you go through your life cycle, you're picking stocks, same thing happened with him. And then he realized that he needed to figure out rules around the market. He would use distribution for market tops, and then follow throughs for market bottoms. And we'll do ones on my thoughts on distribution and everything in future episodes. But this is important. He originally did it on major market bottoms. Like if you look at the first edition, if you can get a copy of it on eBay or something, it's probably cool to have. They're hardbound and everything, and just nostalgia. But here we've got, the Dow is what he used to look at back in the day. And we've got like the 1982 market bottom, the 78 market bottom, the 74 market bottom. That was an important one. Wow, that was an important one. And, that was, how he started with major market bottoms, meaning bear markets. In general, most people kind of agree that, there's a little bit of a debate, but when you're 20% off your peak on an index level, that you're in a bear market. That it's probably worth debating that, but not today. But it's generally everyone agrees with that. So a 20% or more is really what he was looking for the follow through day. So this concept, and trust me, I'll get into it, what it is. And I will, again, like the last one, I will try to go like this when I'm done with the backstory. So if you don't want to hear this part of it, I totally get it, man. It's totally fine. That I'll try to go like this. Can't promise it, because you know me, I get on a roll and I forget things. But so he was wanting it for a major market bottom, and that's how he started studying it. Then eventually, he comes out with IBD, the newspaper, and he was really, the newspaper was for two real reasons, in my opinion. One was for political reasons, and we won't talk about that on the show, but Bill was a very political person, as I am, but I keep it off of, social. I keep it off of IBD, whatever it is, what it is, wasn't really political until I started working with him and realized how important that was. And I've always said that he knew more about politics than about the market. I learned so much. On Sunday nights during election years, it was funny because we would talk every Sunday night religiously and for an hour, maybe 2 hours, and go through the market and the NESME list and what stocks we were going to add to the list, what ones we were going to remove, and our stance on the market and everything. But when it was an election year, not just presidential cycles, but the mid-year or mid-cycles, that he would care so much about that you could tell he was like a kid. He could not wait for us to get through our work so we could start talking politics. And the first time he asked me something political, I had no clue, because I was just, I was so busy with the market and, in the market. That's it. I had no life, just the market. And then, of course, when my kids were born, my kids, obviously. But besides my kids in the market, I didn't really have a life. So, I didn't have time to watch politics. But then he asked me this thing, and he was very disappointed that I didn't know what was going on with the current events. So then I just started getting glued in so I would be able to talk intelligently with him. But most of the time I just listened, and we would just talk politics, man. And it was just in all the things that are going on now with the with the media and stuff. Like he was so into media bias, and 22 years ago, 23 years ago, he was linked in, and he was just so into that world. And oh God, I'm getting into politics. I didn't want to, but the point was the paper had, sorry for that. I would edit it out if I knew how, but I don't. So, fast forward. Um, so two reasons that he started the paper: politics, because he wanted to have his mindset or his voice out there, which was obviously conservative, if you didn't know. He worked with Ronald Reagan way back in the day, and we did some stuff behind the scenes with Bush early on, and all the different things. But he wanted it for the political side, to get that message out there. And then he also, more importantly, or I think equally importantly, he wanted to help the average person learn how to trade. Like that was really more important to him, I think, than the institutional clients that we had, that we took very seriously. I took very seriously, and so did he. But I think if you really had to ask him, like, do you really care more about the firm that's giving you $300,000 a year or $1 million a year or whatever it was, I don't even know, that or the person who buys a newspaper for $1.25 once a week, and it would be that person, and that's why I'm doing these. Part of it, and obviously I've talked before, I want to have something for my kids to watch someday when their life slows down and they want to know what daddy did. And because I never really talked about what I did at home. When I was at home, it was home time, and I'd have chart books and laptops and stuff around all the time, but it wasn't, I'm not going, hey, kids, let's go over what a follow through day is, like that just didn't happen. But one day they might get into it. They just graduated from college last year, and so this is a busy time, life. So maybe, when they're in their 30s or something, who knows if I'm around or not. But then you got my grandkids who, they're not born yet. My kids don't want them yet, but they will at some point. So I'm hoping that the grandkids are watching us someday. So anyways, it was the same thing. Sorry, still not better. That he just wanted to help people, and so I'm trying to do my part of continuing on that legacy of sharing stuff with everyone, and so hopefully, if you like these, share with folks. Listen at 2x speed when I'm just babbling on, so it makes it a little bit easier on you. So enough of that. So now we're going to go into the follow through day. So, and there was a point in that. So he was trying to teach people. So we had this thing called the big picture, which was a column in there that would kind of walk through what the market did on that day and interpret the market. Like a big part of his philosophy, and I fully believe this, is that you shouldn't try to predict the market, because no one can. That you just want to interpret what the market is doing and has been doing recently, to give you a sign for what is normal and natural going forward. That's a big, important thing. So let me say it again. Your job is not to predict the market. Your job is to interpret the market. That is everything. And if you don't understand that, eventually you will, and it will be like, oh, be a weight off your shoulders, because it's like, no one can predict the market. Like, what happens is there's an ego involved. You predict the market one time, it happens to everyone, myself included, everyone, Bill too, everyone. You predict the market and you're right, and then it's an ego boost, and then so you want to do that again, and that's a bad habit to get into. So it's much better to just keep an open mind at all times for any outcome, but know what would be normal and natural, which is not really predicting. Is just saying, okay, if the market is set up a certain way, and let's say the market is weak right now, you would know what is normal and natural in a weak market. In a weak market, you gap up at the open and close weaker. In a strong market, you tend to either open flat or down and move up higher. And there's all these little things like that aren't predicting. It's just interpreting, okay, what phase are you in and what would be normal and natural? So that's what, the kind of the big picture was trying to do. And it kind of boxed Bill in at some point because he's all into this distribution thing. And originally it was, like 3 to 4 days over 3 to 4 to 5 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks. And it was 5 days. And it was all this moving target of distribution, which, if you don't know what distribution is, it was originally defined as a down day in the market on an increase in volume. And if you had a number of those in a period of time, that was enough to push the market over. And he would often say, back in the day it was 4, and then when it was 5, that was for the longest time, like 5 in a rolling 3 to 4 week time frame. And then it was 4 to 5 weeks, and then so we settled on 25 days, to keep it consistent, because I really didn't like the 3 or 4 weeks or 4 or 5 weeks thing, because it drove me crazy, because that could be different on a Monday than on a Friday. That's when my like OCD or Asperger's or whatever I have kicks in. Is like, no. We got to do things right. It's got to be a rolling time frame. Like, you can't say it's 25 days if it's this day of the week and 21 days if it's this day of the week. That makes no sense to me, like, at all, and he never worried about those things because he made the rules. Like, so he could just do whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted, which was fine if you're Bill. But if you weren't, you kind of had to find some rules to follow. And there's a point to this. So you would have this rolling time frame and then a number of distribution days. And he would start pounding the table saying that, okay, let's say it's during the time where 5 days of distribution over a 25-day period of time was what he was looking for to say that the market is now in a downtrend. Even if it was at a market high, he would say 5 days of distribution. Well, no, I take that back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out you go. Just like that. It was that on the 5th day, you go to cash. And I believed that for a long time. And I think he believed that, but that's not what he would do all the time. Sometimes there would be 6, 7 days of distribution. He'd be on margin because he was doing this other thing, this feel, which is why one of the reasons why we created this market school. And I'm not trying to sell this. I don't get paid a dime for it, even though I created it. What are you going to do? Don't get paid anything for anything I created, but what are you going to do? But I'm giving these away for free. So, anyways, one of the reasons why we did that was have those are filled with just black and white rules, no gray, no interpretation of just like, if the market does this, then you do this, you buy or you sell. And sorry. And so you have all these black and white rules, and that was market school. But before that, what would happen is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out you go, you're in a downtrend. So that kind of boxed the team in who was writing the paper. And I was not involved with that at all. I wasn't part of IBD until directly. I was always indirectly, but like 2019 or so. I mean, I started doing stuff for them back in 99. Anyways, the point was that they would box them in, because then in the big picture column, they would start saying, okay, market's in a correction. So how do you get out of a correction? And this was the big mistake I think Bill made. How do you get out of a correction? Well, you have a follow-through day. But the follow-through day was originally just for, remember, bear market bottoms. Not every time the market has what he considered maximum distribution, or 5 days worth of distribution. But the thing is, like, the beauty about Bill was he was flexible, right? He would be very rigid with the rules that he would say, but in practice he would be very flexible, because he would just say, it's I don't want to say he would say it was different this time, but he would say, okay, the leaders are holding up, and so we're ignoring that. Or his favorite stock that he was piled into that was not doing anything wrong, the market's running into trouble, but those are just the whatever stocks, So it was this judgment call. And so that was another reason why we did the market school, is because we knew, and this was back in 2011, that he wasn't always going to be with us. And so we wanted to have rules that would, his rules, like based on him, not trying to reinvent the wheel, but trying to think through like, what was Bill really thinking? Not what he said. And that was a big part of that original research that the three of us did that I'm super proud of, and it needs to be improved. Like it needs a total overhaul, but I have other things on my plate this year. So maybe next year, Justin and I can do some work on that. I don't know. I pretty much would have to lock myself in an office for, 6 months minimum. I mean, that was a huge undertaking. What we took. I mean, I remember on my 40th birthday, I spent the entire day working on this, and most of that on the phone with Justin. I think Chuck was in Israel riding a camel or something at the time, but yeah, I could be wrong about that. But we had a deadline, and he had this trip to Israel already planned out, and we thought we were going to hit our deadline. But before that, Bill gave us his stalling project. Man, I'm off the rails. But what are you going to do? So the he in early 11, he was adamant that this. Well, I'll just share it with you. So I don't know if the story's not really done, but I'm going to do this just in case I move on from the story. So let's share market search and make sure that I actually do this time, because man, I've messed this up way too many times. Okay, it looks like it's there. So let's go to the NASDAQ in 2011. So it was this day on 2/18. Bill, this is what threw us off, and because we were working on the market school, we were almost done, and we were going to be teaching our first market school class, I think, in September at this point. So we're like, oh, we've got plenty of time. And then this happened. It looked fine, right? But afterwards, this happened. Oops. That happened. So a big gap down, and all of the PMs, we were all up to our eyeballs in stock at that point. And I think we increased exposure for one reason or another on that day. And he was not happy about that. And then the market went lower, and let's just go through. Just fast forward. So we lost a ton, during this, or I don't know what the other guys were, but based on what Bill was acting, I assume it wasn't just me. But so we lost a lot in that. And his whole thing was that there were 5 days of distribution at that point, and we should have been in cash on that day. Well, that's a topic for another day, but that turned into stalling. What he wanted that day to be a stalling day in your 5th day of distribution, and then you sell on the way up. And so we should have been out of the market before. It's just hard to say that with a straight face, man. It just is. I mean, come on. But anyways, that threw us for months, because then we had to do this big stalling project. And if you've ever seen the stalling rules, that we have these convoluted rules that we really need to improve on, that really kind of data fitted, days like this, and stalling became part of the whole distribution thing. And well, way before that, the distribution thing, I said originally, a distribution was a day that was down from the prior day. So a pink day with a pickup in volume higher than your prior day, not versus average. For distribution follow-throughs, is always versus your prior day. So like, for example, let's blow this up. Oops. So like on this day, you just look at that action, and of course it's distribution, but for it to truly be distribution, the volume has to be higher than your prior day, which it is right here, higher than that prior day. And it's down 2.48%, which you can see there. But originally, it was just down a little bit. And in 2000 or 2001, that was really bothering me, because it was what I would refer to as these loopholes, where it was like, it was down, but it was down 0.01. And I'm like, is that really distribution? So you mean if it was up 0.01, it would have been fine, but this down 0.01, it wasn't fine. And so I did this big study, and I had this thing programmed into Wanda where I'd have each day worth of distribution in different ways measured and up at the top of the chart so I could see. And so it'd be like, okay, 4 days of distribution in 20 days, 3 days of distribution in 15 days, 5 days of distribution in 25 days, and so on, like different variations of the amount of days in a set amount of time. But then I also, just to make it more complicated, I was doing different levels because that just down a little bit bothered me. So I said, okay, well, what if it was down 0.05 and down 0.1, down 0.15, down 0.2, and down 0.25, and so on. And after a while, it settled on the 0.2. So we changed the distribution from being down to down 0.2 as your distribution day. And Bill was happy with the 0.2. And I wanted to keep working on it. But, the good thing about Bill is every once in a while he would realize that, I tend to be well, you wouldn't know it based on my video skills, but I tend to be a perfectionist. When it's something I can be a perfectionist on, obviously this podcast is a train wreck, but what are you going to do? But I'll get there, I'll get there eventually. But it's not a high priority of being great at this, but as long as you guys get the message. So we changed it to 0.2, and now during that time in 2000, so that was maybe 2001 or so, give or take. Then we got to this stalling thing, that was 2011. And around that same time, the three of us came up with these ideas for distribution days of what a true distribution day was. And we had like 17 different versions of it. And we shared it with Bill, and he was not happy about that because his thing was he wanted it simple. Okay, it's down, and okay, if you want this down 0.2 thing, which he totally was down with that. He embraced that as distribution. Then that's what distribution is. But there's a reason why I'm talking about distribution, because it's part of the family of follow through days. At least the way Bill would look at it. And so if you're like, why are you talking about distribution so much with the follow through days? There's a reason. So anyways, we came up with these rules, which I can't find. And I think they were solid. They were, some days that we would call a distribution day, like, let's say this day here, like this day, it's down 1.25 on a pickup in volume, but is that really distribution with that big, closing range near the top, and is that truly distribution? And that becomes that's a big topic, and it's really probably a touch of gray. It's somewhere in between, there's some accumulation, some distribution, but that's a topic for another day. But anyways, so I'm going to stop share for a second. So we've got this problem that comes up, and slowly, right, that we've got distribution, we've got a number of, now we know 5 days of distribution and 25 rolling days, and then we have ways of dropping it off if the market increased enough and everything, but still 5 days of distribution plus all this stalling stuff. And then the market would be in this downtrend. But the only way to get back in an uptrend was this follow-through day thing. That was a mistake, a huge mistake, because the follow-through was intended for market bottoms, which is where it works, not on any time you wiggle and wobble, and maybe you haven't even gone down below your 21 day yet. So just a bit of caution when using a follow-through day. I would only really use a follow-through day for when you've had real problems in the market, like you're down a substantial amount off your highs. You've been underneath your 21 day, preferably your high has been under your 21 day for a while, because that's cleaning out the market, and then that's when you really need a follow through to get back in. Besides that, I would use the 21 day. So let's say you've got a lot of excess distribution in the market, and then but the market's not coming down, and you're holding above your 21 day, and then you just maybe like shake out below your 21 day, but no follow through. And then you get back up above your 21 day and your low starts trending above it, like we were talking about in the last episode. Well, why do you need a follow through day? I don't think if Bill didn't have the newspaper and that process that boxed him into that thing, that he would be looking for one. But that's the danger of making rules, and why I always try to think of the unintended consequences of rules. And one of the reasons why I don't use volume anymore, that's a huge topic that would take me like probably a series of maybe 10 episodes to really capture. But in a nutshell, it's that volume back in the day, let's say pre 2000, was clean. Obviously it was getting slightly dirty, over the years, but it was clean data, meaning that if there was shares on the tape, those are real shares, like buying demand, selling demand. And then since then, you've had, algos, you've had free commission, you've had decimalization that has brought the spreads in super tight. So it's free to trade, both from a slippage standpoint as well as a cost standpoint. You've got all these people who are just trying to make money off of not even the spread, which used to be like a quarter spread would be kind of normal, so 25 cents. They're making, they're doing it off of a fraction of a penny, just trying to go on the inside bid and ask of a fraction of a penny, and just doing that countless times an hour, and just making these tiny little increments up. And so all of those, is that really volume? Is that really demand, buying or selling demand? You've got ETFs now. So if you wanted to express a position before, like with SPY, you would have done it with the S&P futures, right? Or maybe the option market. But now you can do it with SPY, or you can do it with UPRO, or you can do it with a million other instruments. Or same thing with any baskets of stocks. So let's say you're trading the SMH because you want more exposure to NVIDIA. Just using an example, I don't have a position in it, that, you're a big mutual fund, or you're a big hedge fund, and you're like, okay, well, I don't want to go into NVIDIA right now and buy more of that. I already have a 5% position, but I want more exposure there. And let's say, NVIDIA and Taiwan Semi are this percent of it. And they're looking at it that way. When you're PM, that's how you're thinking of it. If you're trading an ETF, you're not trading the ETF, you're trading the underlying holdings. And so then they're expressing it that way. Or they could be expressing it with an inverse ETF. You can go long in inverse, you can go short in inverse, like all this volume that is distorted. And then also the thing that happened where stocks stopped splitting back in the day, when you had these odd lot, it costs more to trade less than 90 or 100 shares. People would want to split their stock because so it'd be cheaper for the average person. So now you've got these, round lot things not being an issue. And now you even have fractional shares. You can buy fractional shares and no commission. So things have changed. You've got Reg FD. I'm missing out on, forgetting a million things. You've got after hours, you got pre-market, you have dark pools, you have our stocks trading on foreign exchanges. So let's say our market is closed. Now they're going to do this silly thing with 24/7, I think, that I just heard. Like, this is stupid. They're going to do some history. Like back in the day, was like the 20s or something. They used to be open on Saturdays for a half day. That's just silly. Like, let the market settle. There's a reason why you use candles, open and a close and all that stuff. And so now we're going to be open constantly. It's not good for anyone. So the pre and the post market trading as well. And then the options, the options were, originally just kind of like quarterly, and then they went monthly, then they went weekly. Now they've got these daily things. And so now I'm not an option guy, and I don't even pretend to be, but I know enough about them to know that the option market will impact, because of the market maker action, will impact what the stock does. And we saw that with, I think a great example was at GME, GameStop, and AMC, a couple of years ago, or maybe that was 4 years. Wow. geez, time flies. Whenever that was, the crazy move that it had, and now everyone sees that people buy these out of the money contracts, and it creates all this stuff that I don't have a clear enough understanding of to regurgitate here, but to know that it impacts the price of the stock and therefore the volume. And so you've got all these dirty things. Oh, what I was talking about with the splitting is, so now when stocks don't split, and let's say they're a $5,000 stock, well, the share volume on a $5,000 stock versus a $5 stock, they could both trade 100,000 shares, right? And is that the same? Of course it's not the same. That's stupid. Like, don't even try to tell me that share volume makes any sense on any level. Like, share volume really on a when you've got stocks that are pennies and you've got stocks that are thousands of, and you're comparing them together. And let's say now with Reg FD, you've got God, I wasn't going to do this. Geez, it's 35 minutes in and I haven't even talked about the follow through day. Should I just stop? I'll keep going. You can always fast forward. So anyways, with the volume, you've got on a composite level, meaning, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I don't use volume for follow through days or distribution anymore. And so I just want you to at least have somewhat of an understanding is that back in the day, when there was volume, it meant something. There was buying pressure, there was selling pressure. I mean, I created indicators for Bill. Really, it was just the two of us that would use it. It was a block trade indicator that would interpret, figured out a way to interpret what the blocks were doing. And in the past, you used to get these, blocks were like 5,000 or more shares traded in one time. This is before the algos would take that 5,000 shares and break them up into even less than 100 shares at a time. So they would have these block things going, and we had this indicator, and it worked really well because volume worked really well back then. And I would watch it like a hawk, and but it's dirty to me, and to me, dirty data is dangerous data. So until I can get a handle, and I don't think there is a way of, and I've just scratched the surface of how dirty it is, and no one can tell me it's clean data. It's not clean. It's not. Like, think through it. Put deep thought into, you're buying 100 shares of IBM in 1980. What is it? What is that procedure like? Now you're buying 100 shares now. What is that procedure like? You want to express that same thing in 1980. How many options did you have of doing that? Pretty much just buying the stock, and then, of course, we're not talking options right now, but the stock. Now there's a million ETFs that you could do. You could look and say, okay, who has the biggest weighting of IBM? I'm going to go in and buy that one, and then that's translating into the volume. And there's so many different things. And so, I'm so sorry about this cold. I still blame it on that Marcus King concert from a few Thursdays back, and boy, was that good. I can't wait. I'm seeing him again, I think in April next month. So anyways, that's my little thing about volume. So I don't use volume, but during this, I'm going to treat it as if we do use volume, because volume this is Bill's concept, and I'm going to treat it that way. And then, at some point I'll walk you through, like, not using volume. So make a long story short, back in the day, Bill came up with the follow through day concept, which I'm going to talk about. Yes, I will. And he got it for market bottoms, major market bottoms, 20% or more. Then eventually he morphed it into needing it all the time whenever you had max distribution to reset distribution, because what he would say is if you had a follow through day, everything was reset. So now your distribution count could have been 8 distribution days. You have a follow through day. Now it's back to 0. And then you start counting again, which is problematic. But that's, that is why we would look for a follow through. So for me, in these episodes, I'm going to focus on real follow throughs, meaning ones where you're either in an intermediate correction, and we can just define that as having really severe damage in a short period of time, living underneath your 21 day or 50 or 200 or any and all of those for any extended period of time, that's when you need a follow through date because it changes the direction in the market. So, all right, with that said, that was the backstory here for real this time. 40 minutes in, Webby finally starts deciding that he wants to actually teach something. So, sorry, guys. We are going to share and let's go through our. Let's just go through this market since we happen to have it up. So at this point, here's our 21 day is the green line, the 50 day is the red line, and your black one is your 200 day. So you've been underneath your 21 day for a while, and you're underneath your 50 day. And the concept is, you're pretty much, you've got to be out of the market at that point, probably by this day, unless you have some like really low cost basis stock from around here or here that you're trying to hold for a bigger move. But anything that you would have bought in this time frame, or even from this time frame, you're going to be out of. So let's just walk through this from March 10th. Okay. So here we're on this day, and now we say, okay, we've had enough. We know we've had 5 days of distribution up here, so we've had enough days of distribution. You get more in here that we need a follow through. So the first thing you need before a follow through day is you need a rally attempt. So is this a rally attempt? No. So we're going to go forward a day. Is that a rally attempt? Yeah. So why is it a rally attempt? The rule is simply that it's just up on the day. It could have the worst candle in the world, but as long as it's up on the day, it is a day one of your rally attempt. And this is a good looking one because it had a shakeout below the prior day's low, and you're up on the day. And so now that line becomes, let me just blow this up even more. That line there, this low, the 2688.21, becomes our line in the sand for this rally attempt. You need to stay above that, and you need to count. So this is day one, and our follow through happens on the 4th or after, where you have another big move up, and we'll get into what a big move is in a little bit. A big move up with a volume picking up above the prior day. So this is day one, and so we're looking at that on day 4. So let's go out one day. Okay, so our rally has already failed because we undercut that on an intraday basis. So now let's just assume, and for some reason we don't have like on a track price on the Qs. When you go here, you can see the closing range. You see that in the middle, CLS range, and that is where it closed within the bar. And the way this is designed in Market Surge is it doesn't account for the true range. This is just the bar's range. So if there's a gap, it's not going to do it accurately. So you're going to have to do it on your own and calculate it. But for the Qs, it's 59% closing range. It looks like on NASDAQ that it's over 50%, just eyeballing it. So then that would be considered a pink rally day, meaning day one. And why this came about was, and I'll just go to it real quick. Just remind me that we're on March 14th of, let me write that stuff down. Oh, shoot. Didn't bring my pen in. Okay, let's type it down. We were on 3/14/11. So this is an important concept. We're going to go back to 1982. I believe this is on S&P. Oh, sugar in the morning. We don't have our volume in here. We really have to improve our data. But on this day here, and this is in his book, the 1982 market bottom, this was your day one rally right there, where it closed in the upper half, if you can see that there. So that became day one, and as long as you held above that low, let's just go back there. What was that? 810. This is important because you know how important that time frame is, 1982. So on August 9th, that's your rally day, pink rally day, because you close in the upper half. Then you go out. Next day, you hold above it. Next day, you hold above that low. That's fine. And the concept is it doesn't matter what it does in these days as long as it holds above it. You know, you prefer it to have some strength, but you don't have to have it. Now you have another day. It doesn't quite undercut that, but you've got, 4 days down in a row over here. Well, then you've got all these days in a row down too, but it's not going down much. So that's a whole concept that he came up with, is when you're coming down and you stop going down at that same pace, it's actually a sign of, he would say, like if we were looking at volume, heavy volume without further price progress on the downside. And he would abbreviate that in his model books and stuff. And so the first time you're like, what are you talking about, Bill? And it's like, whatever that is, heavy volume without further price progress down. And he would write that acronym down. And that's kind of what you've got here, the feel, even with just the price, because you were coming down here 1%, then down 1.5%, 0.92, then 1.38. So it's picking up again, but then only down 0.61, only down 0.23, only down 0.23, and only down 0.18. That's actually a sign of accumulation, because you just picture it, rather than being in a free fall anymore. And let's look at this bear market. That was severe. Let's look at it on a weekly. That is not a pleasant time. This is a weekly chart. That's November of 80 where that started, and you're all the way down. And just remember, there are follow throughs along the way that have failed, but you try each one of them. You do. We'll get into that in a little bit. And then here's your your follow through, because you're up 1.4%, and we never undercut that low. And then let's just go out to the end of March, and you can see what a big monster move that was, starting down here on that follow through. All right, so let's go back to, where were we? 2011, right? Where did I say? March 11th. 2011. Okay, so now we've got a day one. Let's blow this up a little bit. Okay, so we've got our day one. Let's go out another day. Okay, wait. Okay, so what do we have? Now we have a new day one, because we closed in the upper half. So that is clearly in the upper half. So that becomes day one. Now that's not day one. We've undercut it. So we're in no man's land at this point, because you've undercut your rally day, your pink rally day. And sorry. And what happened there? Okay. Oh, okay. We're on Wolfie's birthday. There's Wolf Van Halen's birthday, 316. Great song by Eddie. If you've never listened to it, used to play that for my kids before they were born. It's a lullaby, actually. Really nice mellow tune. So even if you're not into heavy stuff, you'll like it. So here's your day one. So this is kind of an important concept. So now we've got our first rally day on the 17th. And then the day before's low is what becomes important. So since we didn't have a rally day there, this becomes our rally day, day one, but your low of your rally, that's an important thing. Low of your rally is your low before your day one. So this day one could have happened 3 days later or 4 days later. There's really no rule there, as long as you hadn't undercut that level. So that's our first day. And yes, it's a terrible looking bar, but it is up 0.73. Only had to be up 0.1. So now let's go forward. Okay, day two, we're taking no action. Day three, taking no action. We won't talk about the third day follow through during this session, because I've already gone off the rails enough. Day four, day five. only at 0.54. So we need a 1%. At that point, we would have needed 1 or 1.25. We'll get into that in a little bit. Then here you go. Finally, we get a follow through day. All right. So let's look at that volume. Volume is higher than your prior day. Does not have to be higher than the average volume. The average volume is this red thing. If someone tells you that the volume has to be higher than average, ask them if they've looked at all the follow through days, because they haven't, because they wouldn't say such silly things. People say things and haven't studied it, and it drives me batty because they don't just say it like, oh, I think volume has to be above average. They're like, it has to be above average. And no, it doesn't. Bill didn't even say that it had to be above average. He said he preferred it to be above average, but it didn't have to be. And there's a big, big difference there. So there's your follow through day. Now you're also above your 21 day. So if you were just using the 21 day, you could be buying some there, but that's a topic for another day, or you can revisit the our episode 9, which was on that. So you've got your follow through day, and what becomes important, and this came out of research, not out of Bill's research, but out of research that Chuck Justin and I did when we were doing the market school rules. So really, all the original research came out of that the time frame. That if you undercut the low of your follow through day, it's still okay. But if you close below it, it negates that follow through day signal. And because most of the time when you close below it, you either need a new follow through day or it's going to fail. So this becomes an important line in the sand. So what do you do on this follow through day? You're like, Mike, you're 51 and oh my God, I just looked at the time, 51 and 50 seconds in. Yes, I'm a geek when it comes to 5150 stuff. And I haven't even told you what to do. That's why I'm not a professional podcaster at all. But so what do you do on a follow through day? Well, you buy something. And Bill would always say you buy something on a follow through day. And psychologically, that's very important because now it's like the sun has come out, and before the sky was crying, we're flooding all in town. It's really bad out there. And then you get this follow through day and your mindset shifts from playing defense and probably in cash to playing offense. And so to play offense, you've got to buy something. So there were times where he would keep the PMs max invested, even with a follow through, at 1% of our total account. It only happened one time, but we had been getting chopped up and the market was bad. And he just didn't want any more bleeding because you can either get hit really hard, which is something that typically didn't happen to us, but you could get hit with a bunch of paper cuts that add up to some severe damage that would happen to us. And so at that point, I think he got frustrated with that and put it at 1%. And, I think he was right to do that, because it taught me a valuable lesson that sometimes just staying loose and trading super light gives you that edge that others don't have. Like if you're sitting completely in cash, there's a complacency that builds. Whereas if you do some test probes, and I'm talking tiny test probes, that you stay looser, even if you're losing, but you just don't want to lose too much. So you can say, okay, we're in an intermediate correction. I'm going to look at my account and I'm going to allow myself to get, chopped up with X amount, like let's say 0.5% of your entire account. And then you back into the math on that. Say, okay, if you got $100,000 account and you're going to lose just 0.5%, what is that, $500? So then you go, okay, I'm going to position size into things in a way that, I can have a string of these losses before I trigger this max, kind of circuit breaker that tells me I've got to take a break and be in cash for an extended period of time. So the reason why I say that is you don't have to go heavy on the follow through day. There are some times when you do want to go heavy. Like if there's tons of merchandise around, it's a great looking follow through day, like a setup, like where the setup is. Now, this one doesn't end up working out, but that's a good good looking setup in a lot of ways because you're back above your 21 day. You had, and again, whenever we're looking at these charts, you got to be intellectually honest. I know we get chopped up, or I think we do, that at least that's what I have in my mind. But I'm just saying, how would I treat this market if I was placed there right now? Because that's how you're going to get better. Not like, okay, the next day we fall apart. And let's just do this for fun so you can all play along with this. Let's, in case you've forgotten, because I've forgotten, let's just go out to the end of April. Oh, well, that one worked out for a while. But I was really thinking it was that it had fallen apart. So let's go back to what day were we on? We were on the 24th. So I'm glad that we did that. So the point is being intellectually honest. And I was saying that this was a good setup when I thought we fell apart afterwards. And we didn't, obviously. But that's how you want to look at these things. So when it's a stronger setup, you're going to go heavier. If there's stocks that you like that are in position, you're going to go heavier. If you've been doing well in the prior cycle, meaning you have chips to spend, right? Because think of trading like a big poker game, meaning that you have, if you've been doing well, and one thing you can do is just plot your equity curve and say, okay, is your equity curve over whatever moving average that you want? Like if it's a swing trading account, a 10 and a 21 day makes sense. If it's a position trading account, it's more like your 21 and 50 or your 21, 50 and 200 day, or, you pick what makes sense for you. But if you're getting that feedback that you've been doing well, then you can push it harder. Now, if you've been in a nosedive, which is going to happen, it happens to me, it's happened to everyone who's traded, anyone who says they haven't been there, they're either too new to have been there yet, well, they're not telling the truth, man. So, because I've seen it with everyone, if that you go in waves where you're doing well, you're doing poorly. Happened with Bill, happened with everyone on the teams, happened with me. So what you do? Oh shoot. That's someone at the door. Hold on, I'm going to have to, hopefully this doesn't mess up. I'm going to pause this. How do we pause it? Stop. Well, I am back and I'm very, very worried that the last time I did a stop share and came back to it messed everything up. So let's just hope that doesn't happen because, boy, I was rambling on a long time. So anyways, let's, where were we? We were, I forget. Let's just get back to the chart. And can't believe it. The guy is just coming door to door to sell like home improvement stuff. Like, at some point that stuff has got to become illegal. Okay, so here's where we were. We've got this follow through day. And I think we were talking about, how deep in the market to be. So if you've got a lot in there, if you've been doing well, that's where you want to push it, push it harder and everything and go in deeper. And one of the things that I've done over the years, and Bill wouldn't do this, this is a me thing, a Webby thing, that if I would have kind of a target in mind that based on the follow through day and how I've been doing and everything, like this is how much exposure I want to get to. So let's say it's 30% exposure, meaning $100,000 account, 30% invested, $1 million account, 300,000, $10 million account, 3 million, so on. I think you guys can do math. So if that's my target and I look around and I can't find individual stocks in position, what I'll do is I will go to ETFs, whichever ones make sense. Now, it might be the Qs, spiders, or it might be a double of those like QLD, SSO, or it might be a triple like a UPRO, TQQ, or it might be a sector ETF or even the ARC funds. It just depends on what the market is doing. And that's a technique that I came up with. It was a bit controversial at the firm. A lot of people weren't fans of it, frankly. I did, it is what it is. Everyone's got their own style. This is my style. A big part of my style is using those, and what I would call them as SOF, source of funds, that I would buy them, let's say on this day, and there's nothing around that I want to buy. Or even back in the day, we had to have things on our NESME list, new stock market ideas list, that for like 24, 48 hours, depending on, we changed that a little bit around, um, before we could buy it. So there might not be anything on there, or the stock that was good, the other guys might have bought enough shares. And we talked about that on the IPO base one, where I went over Google. And I would suggest that people watch that one. A lot of good info in that, that sometimes stocks would get blocked by other PMs having it. So there would be no merchandise around, but we were allowed to buy ETFs because they weren't, something we would typically put on the NESME list. I think one time we put a biotech ETF on, and maybe the Qs or spiders once or something like that. But Bill wasn't, he was a stock picker. He wasn't an ETF guy. He personally didn't have any issues with ETFs. That was not a Bill problem. Well, that's all I'm going to say. But so I would go in there and I'd buy, 30% of, let's say, Qs and spiders. If I wanted to be more aggressive, I'd buy the doubles. If I wanted to be even more aggressive, I'd buy the triples. It would depend on things. And if there were individual stocks around, I would just buy those. I wouldn't even buy the ETFs. Then what would happen is sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 days later, or even a week later, a stock that I'm watching would set up into a proper buy point. I would use those Qs or spiders as a source of funds, and I would sell those shares to buy the stock. And it would just, the same way you think of your money market account or your cash account and in your account, I was trying to stay in line with what the market was doing. And so I would just, buy the equivalent percent of my account in those. Doesn't always work out, but you also don't have the individual stock gap down risk that you have, with any stock. No matter how quality it is, there can always be news that comes out of the blue. I mean, we saw that recently with the AI stocks and the DeepSeek. I mean, boom, man, that was ugly. It got really bad. So anyways, that's how you get in. You find, you don't just say, okay, it's a follow through day, I'm going to buy. No. You're going to make a million mistakes. And you don't say it's a follow through day, but the news is really bad. And the news is always bad, almost always bad. Certainly on the bottom day, it's bad. Maybe by the follow through day, it moved up because some of the news was resolving itself or something. But still, you're still in this negative loop of news. And you don't go, well, I'm not going to buy anything because, there's these tariffs and there's the Fed is this and whatever. It's like if the market sets up a certain way, you act because the market looks forward 6 months, give or take, and knows all the scenarios and bets accordingly. It doesn't mean that the market's always right. Of course it's not, but it's thinking in advance. And so it's, any of the news that you read today, that's like ancient history, really. So, so now you're on that follow through day. And the most important thing, if you haven't learned anything else other than, boy, Webby can really ramble on, is that you should have a target in mind of how deep. And that's what we have with the market school. We backed into that with, and again, I'm not trying to sell this, but I'm just super proud of it. I really am. I hope everyone gets it. They like lower the price of it like tremendously. It's super cheap. I think they think no one really wants it. But I think it's great. But it does need work. So anyways, you would have a target in mind. And so 30% is kind of like a base case. Sometimes it would be 55% or deeper, but 30% is you would buy equivalent of 30%. Now, again, if you've been doing poorly, there's no merchandise out there, it's a bad setup, then, you only have to buy one share of one thing out there. It can be, it can be totally small. It doesn't have to be 30%, but you want to get in that habit of buying something on the follow through day. And he would tell me stories about how some PMs, won't mention their names, could never get themselves to buy on a follow through day. I was like, wow, that's just really strange, but they just didn't buy into the whole follow through day concept, and would still be in a negative mindset. So don't do that, But remember, about half of these follow through days are going to fail. So you're going to lose money in a lot of them. Don't think. And what happens is people hear about the follow through day system. They read Bill's book. They hear about it. They hear us talking about it, and then they're like, "Oh, follow through day. That's a green light to just buy anything." And no. That's a recipe for getting chopped up, because it gives you an expectation. An expectation in this case is for us to stay above the low of this day. So now let's just go forward. Okay, it's meeting our expectations, and it's also staying above your 21 days. So here, we've been above it for several days, but our low hasn't stayed above it. Okay, so to me, that's an important day, because you've got 3 days where your low has been above your follow through day. And this one, you could say in spirit, was your 3rd day that was up. Like this is day 1, 2, 3, 4th day where your low is above it. That's a big deal for me. But obviously, it's running into this 2,800 kind of area of resistance, and it's stalling a little bit. Like this is, to me, a real kind of stalling type of action, but still, it's acting right. And let's go forward. It's going sideways. Okay, so that's how a normal follow through day works. Let's just go out until it fails to just kind of show that part. Okay, so this one ends up actually going up and staying above this low. Remember, this was your follow through day. This was your line in the sand, and it holds above that the whole time. So I would consider this a successful follow through day, because you went up into new high ground, even though it wasn't easy. Let's go out further. For some reason, I thought this was a bad market. Oh yeah, it was a bad market. So this is what, it's my parents. So I got to take that. I'm going to pause it again. All right, I'm back, and hopefully this ended up working out. Sorry, my folks called. I am blessed to still have both of my parents with me, and they're the perfect parents, but they're even better grandparents. They, frankly, perfect role models as parents, and even better as grandparents. I know everyone would say that, but if you knew my parents, you really know that. And my dad, I nicknamed him a long time. I like nicknames. Honest Abe, and my mother, Mary Poppins. You younger people don't even know, but she's just like, yeah, perfect. And they lost Izzy this week, or their dog, but it's like a family dog. But it was like, I always joke that Izzy was their favorite child, and they just adored Izzy. But anyways, it was a Cane Corso, if you know what type of dog that is. It just was Izzy was just beautiful and very very unique and special. So moving back to this, let's see where we were. We're going to share this screen. We'll get through this sooner or later, kids. Wait, I'd switched over. It was, let's see. Let's look at the NASDAQ. Where were we? We were in 2011, right? Oh yeah. We were going out into how 2011 turned really ugly. So this is worth looking at. So this was the time frame that we were looking at originally. That was a stall day, and then we came down, and then we were looking at the follow through day that happened over here. And again, remember, this was, blow this up a little bit, that this was day 0, really your low, and that's what you had to hold above. here was your rally day, day one. So day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 day follow through up 1.41. Volume was higher than the prior day, and that's what started everything. Then you would have been looking, and we deemed it successful, and then you were looking for other um, signals to get you out of here, and simply, just using the 21 day would have worked fairly well there. And then you go through that same procedure. So then you would have been back out of the market over here and looking for a follow through day in that time frame. And then, boy, that year really got ugly. That's one worth studying, and maybe we'll do that on a different one. So that was just one follow through. Let's look at our current market. So I'm recording this on March 8th. So we've been in this decline here. So at this point, our high has been stuck underneath the 21 day for a while. So we're looking for a follow through. So let's just walk through this and how we would, during this time frame, be looking for one. And so let's say we'll go back to the 25th. And this is definitely going to have to be several episodes because I've babbled on so much. But, it's a lot of, I don't know. Where else are you going to know that info? Do you really need that info? I don't know. So here you're looking for a rally day. This closes in the lower half, so that's not it. Then you get your day up. And granted, this is a terrible day, but this becomes day one. Blow it up even more. This becomes day one because it's a rally day. We take no action on it, but this becomes the low. So the day before that, that's where you can't fall below, or you're going to have to restart. So then it undercuts that. So no harm, no foul. So you would have done nothing. You were counting it as day one, and it undercut both day one and day zero. Your day zero being your low of the rally attempt. So got that going for us. Now it goes lower. Now we get an upside reversal. This is a very nice looking classic day one rally because it stops on something. The 200 day was very, very important. That we'll have to do a bunch of stuff on that. But this is your day one, and you need to hold above it. And that next day you undercut it, which is telling you how weak the market is, that you couldn't even rally for more than a day. Then that was, I believe, a 52% closing range on that. So that was technically a day one, pink day rally day. So we had to stay above that low. Then you get your day two. Day three, because we're still above this, right? We're still above that low, day three. And then yesterday, we've got, it's not day four because we undercut that. So now we have a new day one. And I'll say this is the genius of what Bill created with the follow through day is because during this time, that's when you really get chopped up. It's like you see an upside reversal. I'm sorry. Can't always get to that mute fast enough. So when I'll trade upside reversals from a swing trading standpoint before a follow through day. And frankly, Bill would buy things before a follow through day. He wasn't always in cash. He would have a few probes out there, but you wouldn't get serious about anything until you had a follow through day. So I would use upside reversals, not something he would really use, but upside reversals like that one off the 200 day to start buying. Because if you wait for a follow through day and sorry, it's just hard to breathe, man. Hold on. Dang, Marcus, why did you get me sick? So if you look at the distance from an upside reversal day one up to a follow through day, you leave so much on the table, and lots of times those follow through days don't work. So you miss it down here. You're like, oh, I bet you this is a bottom, and you don't buy it here. And then it goes way up here. You get a follow through day, you buy it, it goes up for a day or two, and then rolls. Then that can be frustrating. And if you do that too many times and you miss out on that, you'll start jumping the gun when you shouldn't. So, this is not bill approved or anything, but just the way I look at it is, if you have a logical rally day, especially an upside reversal, especially at like undercutting a recent low. So you undercut a recent low and you turn and you rally back up, closing up above that shakeout area, then I'm going to start positions there. That's unorthodox. It's not following the system, but for me that works. At least pilot positions. Okay, so that's just food for thought on how you want to trade this. The orthodox way is waiting for the follow through day. The unorthodox is an upside reversal. At least initiating something like a source of funds type of thing using like Qs or spiders or something. So let's get back into this. So now we have a day one rally. Now I didn't buy anything here on the on this one because frankly we had failed on this getting support where we should have, and now you just undercut this one and just saying, you know what, even though Spider did shake out by its 200 day, which is very good, but the fact that we didn't even get above Thursday's high, I'm just like, it's not worth it, and this feels more like a chop zone. And if you look back on the COVID low, this is worth going through. So at this point, let's just go back a little bit. So we're out the end of February, and let's go here. So we're plummeting. We're coming straight down. You have no rally day in sight. Let's go through this. Now we get a pink day rally day closing in the upper half, and our low is there. You need to stay above it. Let's see how this plays out. Big update, huge update. So if you had bought some here, now I don't know what I did during that. I don't think I was buying anything there when I shouldn't have been, because this is just a free fall, and there's like, but if you were to have bought there, then at least you would have had some cushion on this day. Whereas what happens is if you don't buy it on day one, this upside reversal, then you're really tempted to on day two, and then you're totally breaking rules, right? Because even buying anything on this day is breaking rules, but here, that's a FOMO trade. And so let's see what ends up happening. Now you get this downside reversal. So if you bought on this day, you're in a world of pain, mark that 1-0. Like, this is not good, because massive downside reversal. Now your expectation is for it to undercut this low, and who knows? So let's see how this plays out. Now it just messes with you up big on that day. So this would be a follow through day if the volume was higher, but not really a follow through day in spirit, because you didn't even go back above. It was an inside day, not even a powerful inside. Yes, it was up 4%, but well contained within that prior day. Then it goes down more, but it hasn't failed yet. Okay, now it's completely failed, gone underneath there. Now this becomes day one, and this becomes day 0. It looks like that day before is a little bit lower. Now this now we have no rally at all, right? Because we've undercut our low and we close in the lower half. Now we go lower. See, following Bill's system of the orthodox follow through on here really saves you from all of this, because you would have been out, massive close below your 21 day and your 50 day up here. Um, and I was running swing trader with Justin at this time, and I'm pretty sure we were in cash. Maybe we had something around here or something, but then went to cash and stayed in cash from memory. I could be wrong. So we have this day is our low. This is day one. Now, same thing over again. Day one. Looks like a new day one. You see how this works, because now that closes in the upper half. Day two. Day three. Okay. Now it looks like it's in the lower half. So day zero. Day one. And this is our low that we're looking for, but this is day one. 2, 3, 4, 5. See, volume is less than the prior day, and it's really not yes, it's up 3%, but even a follow through day in spirit, it's a follow through day in spirit. But, and I know this works, but in just being intellectually honest, that would be tough with that position. They're just barely making up, but it is I would call it a follow through day in spirit. Okay, start coming back down. So now we've undercut the low of your follow through day in spirit. So any action I would have been taking there, I would have reversed, because you close below your follow through day, and that's a negative sign. And we're waiting. Now, technically, that's up more than 1%. During this time, we would have been needing 1.25%, but it's either 1% or 1.25%, depending on the volatility in the market. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But here, this one is up 2.3%, which you can see up here. But the position of it is lacking, because we're underneath the original follow through day in spirit low. So I wouldn't really call that one. Just doodling around. Okay, here's okay. I believe I coined this one in real time, the Tom Petty won't back down follow through day, because it was just so powerful. If it wasn't this day, it was somewhere in this ballpark. So you're up 6.7%, closing back above your 21 day. So again, if you just use your 21 day, got you out there, getting you back in here. Yeah. Go back and watch the last episode. That's your follow through day. So this is your real orthodox follow through day. So now this is your low for the entire rally to have failed if it undercuts that. But you would know that it's starting to fail if it undercuts this low, right? So 248.17. Oh, this is SPY. Let's go over to NASDAQ and see what that is looking like. Similar type of thing, but here on this one, here is your day one, because of the upside reversal. Day one, day two, day three, day four. Let's see, is there a fourth day follow through? Okay, even though that's up a bunch, 5.6%, volume was less. So in spirit, in spirit. So it really, yeah. So 1, 2, 3. So follow through day in spirit. That's the one that we would have called. Let's just go back to it. March 26th. So this becomes day one here, because that closed in the upper half. Day 2, day 3, day 4. So that's your follow through day in spirit, even though your volume isn't there. Like, that's a classic position of one, because you've gone up and now you're right by your 21 day. Big powerful move. So I'm going to call that a follow through day in spirit. Still not underneath that low. Still not underneath that low. Not underneath it. Let's go out to April. Okay, boom. This is problematic. You close decisively underneath your low of your follow through day in spirit. So I'm going to have to back away there. There's just no two ways about it. You're down 4% on a gap down, running into resistance at the 21 day. And I know this works out. But again, I just reiterate this so much because I cannot tell you, it's not just, I gotta stop this for a second. It's not just a pet peeve of mine that people being intellectually dishonest with themselves, because I don't think that they're sitting there saying, "Oh, I'm going to fool myself." Like you could hear it. Like I hear it all the time. Professionals, non-professionals, of what they would have done in a certain situation, and I go, "I know how you train. You wouldn't have done that there because you didn't know how it was going to play out. So you've got to play it when you're studying. Please study it as if how you would actually act, because then in real time you have a better chance of actually doing it that way. Because otherwise it'll give you a false sense of security, and you'll be like a fish out of water. Like, like seriously, like you won't, it'd be like if you always swam with a life jacket on and you feeling like, oh, you're fine. And then all of a sudden you're in a little pool, where a 5 foot pool with a, 5 foot deep pool with a life jacket on, and you're floating around. Everything is good because you've been using hindsight all this time. And now all of a sudden, you're in a plane over the ocean, it crashes in the ocean, you've got no life jacket, and you're just floating there in high seas. That's the battlefield of the market, right? Like all this information is coming at the same time, global markets, what the Fed's doing, what the president's doing, what the media is saying about what the president's doing, what the, stocks are reporting earnings. You got, CPI, PCE, you name it, coming out, all this information, all these bullets flying, and you've got to make decisions in real time. So if you wouldn't know what you would do historically when you look at a chart, if you can't look at it and say, oh, on this day, I wouldn't know what to do. Nothing wrong with that. 2, I would buy. 2, I would hold. Or 3, I would hold. I feel like Bush. 4, I would sell, or whatever, I would reduce. You need to know exactly when you're looking at a chart what you would do at any point. Does not mean it's going to be the right decision, but for your rules, how would you handle them? So I can't stress that enough. And I'm going to keep stressing that until everyone is intellectually honest. And I know a lot of folks that are yeah, not. Okay, so here I'm backing away, and I'm actually thinking we're going to undercut this because this is starting to look like a double bottom. But then the next day it firms up. It's like, wow, that's breaking my expectations, but still not anything to do yet. Kind of breaking my expectations, even though it's down 1.5%. It's really not, it's holding in there. Then you've got the Tom Petty don't back down follow through day. Big increase in volume versus your prior day. Big gap up, closing at your highs up 7%, like you get back above your 21 day. And, that's how that bottom. Then you get a downside reversal, but you've bought on here, right? Because I've bought here, sold here, bought back here. And I'm not sure if in real time I was buying back there because I think I was convinced that this was like 1998 and that we were going to have a double bottom because of this this 50 day that was in a decline. But I've since learned, from that because I'm messed that up. I don't remember exactly what I was doing, but I remember I was too negative. And look, it was unprecedented. We did not have a precedent for this that ended up working out. Then you have another follow through day in Spirit. It's low. Okay, its low has been above the 21 day for 3 days in a row, and you're closing up on the day. So this is where I'm starting to put down the gas pedal if I'm doing things right. Now, my concern is we're getting up against a 200 day and a 50 day, but we blow past it. Like this is where we should have stopped. We really should have stopped and gone down here. Like that would have been normal and natural of really going up to here and then turning away. Like this is unprecedented what ended up happening here. It's still hard to believe it, even knowing that it happened. So this is what we call a subsequent follow through day. meaning it's within 25 days of its low, and it still qualifies as a follow through day. And so this is a big topic that I wanted to get into and is very important. So volume's higher than the prior day and you're up more than what you need, which in this case was only 1.25%. That closes up. I'm going to circle back to this. Let's just get through this and then I'm going to walk you through that whole concept because it's very important. Let's just get through here. So another follow through day in not a follow through day in spirit, another what we call subsequent follow through day. It's a market school terminology. Another follow through day in or additional follow through day. It's starting to come down, but yes, it's undercut some of these additional follow through days, but it hasn't undercut our original follow through day here. But it's failing at your 50 and your 200, so you're getting concerned. Let's just jump forward and snaps back. Looks like volume is less, so it's not one. Let's go out another week. Let's see. That volume's less. Okay. I'm not sure if that's 25 days or not, but on this day, if that's within 25 days of here, let's see. It's just kind of 5, 10, 15, 20. Probably it's probably not. But if that was within 25 days, that would be an additional follow-through day because it's up 3.57 and it's within 25 days there. So this takes us to our next topic, 2 hours into this thing. I'm sorry, guys. I will, I'll try to get more to the point. I don't practice these or things like that. So maybe that would help. But you know what? Screw it. I don't have the time to do that. I'm either going to do these this way or they're not going to get done. So if it's too much babbling, I'm sorry. So the follow through day that when Chuck, Justin, and I came up with this huge undertaking, man, did we bite off more than we could chew because we were trying to come up with black and white rules, like an algo. It's essentially an algo. Justin keeps this in a spreadsheet in Excel. And it's just like, okay, if this happens and we buy, if this happens, we sell. And there's no interpretation, just black and white really works for me and my personality. So to come up with those, we had to do a bunch of original research, which meant for months, we sat just looking at the market, and we just wanted to isolate just the NASDAQ just to keep it simple, because once you start doing the three-dimensional chess with the NASDAQ, the S&P, and another index, maybe the New York Composite or the Russell or the Dow, or you pick your favorite other one, it gets a lot more complicated. And so we were doing this, first pass at just the NASDAQ, knowing that eventually we're going to have to do it three-dimensional chess, because the concept is it doesn't have to be on the NASDAQ. It can be on the S&P. Or back in the day, Bill used to use the Dow. I haven't used the Dow in 25 years. But, at times he would use the New York Composite, which is all the stocks on the New York Stock Exchange. NASDAQ is all of those, market cap weighted. For a while, he used the S&P 600, which is small caps, similar to the Russell 2000, just a little bit different. And just say like, okay, if you got enough distribution on any one of the indexes, that's enough to need a follow through, and the follow through can be on any of the indexes. So that adds another layer of complexity, but it's reality. So right now, these days, I will look at the NASDAQ and I will look at the S&P. But I'm not opposed to looking at the New York Composite either. So anyways, so we were looking for, all these rules, and the most important thing, and I'm going to just do this because this is important. The percent needed for a follow through day was the biggest issue that we had, because back here, Bill had it at 1%. So he wrote this in whatever year he wrote. Oh, Mike, keep up the great work. I would have him autograph it every once in a while. I always felt funny about asking him to do that, but it would be like if everyone brought in a bunch of books or something to have them autograph, which they always would. I just go, oh, Bill, could I get one? I felt funny. I never asked for a picture with him. Like all these years we were on stage and shared an office together, worked together. I don't have one freaking picture with my idol. It's really sad. So this was, 1988. So he came up with this in 1988. And by kind of this go around, the second edition is still at 1% from memory. And then as we were going into this one, he was starting to say, okay, this was kind of like post 2000. And, the market had gotten really volatile during the late 90s, and 1% was so easy to have happen that he recognized like that really isn't the confirmation he was looking for, nor was it the, anyways, it wasn't the confirmation he was looking for. So he started increasing it, and he had another PM at the time do some work, and he came up with 1.6 or 1.7 for the follow through day instead of 1%. And we used that for a while, 1.6 or 1.7. Fast forward a number of years, and Bill didn't like that 1.6 or 1.7 anymore. He wanted it specific to the volatility of the instrument itself, which I love. I love that concept. And so what he did is he would call me up every morning whenever we were looking for a follow through, and he said, "Mike, I got to do my Bill impression," which it doesn't sound anything like this, but I've been doing it this way for 25 years. I'm not gonna stop. "Mike, write this down. For the Dow, I want 2.2%. For the S&P, I want 1.7%. For the NASDAQ, I want 2.5 or whatever, And it would be different on each instrument, each index. And that bothered me to no death, man. I was like, you can't do that, Bill. You can't do that because it's so subjective. It was just him just being like, that's what he needed, and you got to remember, like when it was his way, it's his way or the highway. So if he said that the S&P needed to be up 1.7% on the day and it came up at 1.69, no good, no bueno. You couldn't play, and that didn't sit well with me, but it was what it was. It was his shop and his way. So we continued on that way. And then as we started getting into the market school thing, we're like, okay, well, what number is it? And then people just kept on putting them higher and higher, because what would happen is people who didn't really do original research would be the ones who would get frustrated because they'd say, well, 1.7% follow through would fail. And they had never studied follow throughs and didn't realize that half of them fail anyways, no matter what percent you use. They say, oh, well, the way to do it is not to get sucked in on such a weak rally. We want 2% or we want 2.5% or whatever, number they just pulled out of thin air or on a small sample set. Nothing drives me crazier than a small sample set study. And they would just come up with these numbers. It just drove me crazy. It's like, Bill does it, that's fine. But you doing that? No. And they would come up with it. So it drove me crazy. So what we did is just say, okay, we know that Bill's concept is you're coming down, you need a follow through day. And so we came up with rules of like how and when do you need a follow through day. Then we just said, okay, we know 1% is the threshold, that we wanted at least 1%. Let's just start marking all the potential things, because we didn't know where that was. At the time, we were thinking it was 1.7 or 2% or whatever, because that's what everyone was saying. And so we went through and marked them up. And I'll just share with you like how we stumbled on this. Let's see. That's not a good one. Let's see. Okay, here's a good one. 2010 one. We'll go over this one later. Then, can you guys see that? Hopefully you can see that. So there was multiple follow-through days. There was a 1.38 fifth day follow-through, 16th day follow-through at 1.58, and a 20th day follow-through at 1.48. So again, so with that, we did that for every follow through, the three of us, and we would go through and for every rally, whether it worked or didn't, and put those on there. And after a while, we're like, okay, as you tighten up the 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 percent, so your threshold is 1%. This is important for anyone who's like going to do your own work. You want to decide, are you going to be inclusive or exclusive? Inclusive, you want a lower number; exclusive, a higher number, right? So inclusive at just 1%, you're going to get all those subsequent follow through days. You put it to 1.5%, or in that case, um, none of them even, uh, the highest one was 1.58. So, as a 1.58 was your highest. And so if you're waiting for 1.7, you're missing out on that entire rally. And we'll look at that in a second. And so we're like, okay, well, we don't want that. That doesn't make any sense at all. Like, why are we going to put a threshold that's so high that we're going to miss something? Because then we're going to have an instrument we don't trust. So there's nothing worse than having an instrument you don't trust. Now, eventually, Bill came around to be in agreement that if you make, because he would always say this statement of no bull market started without a follow through day, and you pound that in the table. Well, that's true. That's because the follow through days that start a bull market are after a bear market near the bottom. Not all these little intermediate corrections are every time you need, 5 days of distribution to get wiped off. Like it's like unintended negative consequences. Man, look out for those. So we didn't want to create more unintended negative consequences. So 1.7 was just too high because we were seeing these times like that where they weren't often, but they were late. Or let's say, because a follow through day can happen on the 25th day or 28th day. There are some examples like that. If you're in there and you're waiting for this follow through day and you're trading orthodox, you're not going to trade any, you're not going to use the 21 day, you're not going to use anything else. You're waiting for that follow through day. You're in cash. And this market is ripping up and it's 25 days, a month, over a month. And you finally get your follow through day. And then the last 2 days and then it rolls over. You're going to be like, well, I don't want to trade this system. That doesn't work for me. So you want to be as inclusive. We decided to be as inclusive as possible, having it as low as possible. Whereas the other people, frankly, who just didn't do the work or too scared, is what it is, man, that they want to have a higher threshold so they don't get the egg on their face because of these that fail. What is going to happen is in most cases, theirs are still going to fail. It's just going to happen much later. It's going to be a 17th day follow through instead of a 4th day follow through. So the higher those numbers, um, is very bad. It's really bad because just think about it. You have a 4th day follow through and it meets your 1% threshold, but you're saying, oh no, I heard that it has to be 1.7. And then you get that 1.7, but it's not until the 15th day. So you had all this FOMO for all this time between that first follow through and this one pent up. And so then you get that follow through and you're like, I've been missing all these stocks. And then you go hog wild in. Like I'm speaking from experience, man, like been there, done that. Then it rolls and you're like, oh shoot, then the next follow through happens and you're too timid. So my thing is know that half of them are going to fail, depending on your measurement, more or less, but like half of them are going to fail. So you go into it with that mindset and that amount of capital in there. And you're like, you've got one foot out the door the whole time. You're like, okay, I had a follow through day, but unless you're trending nicely above your 21 days, like this might fail, and you treat it accordingly. You still are invested, but you're protecting yourself. So, anyways, that's with the percent. So that's why we use 1% as our base case to be inclusive. So we went back full circle. So just kind of like classic Coke version of like what Bill originally thought of before there was all these unintended negative consequences and things that have changed because the market's volatility will change, and it changes. It gets, it contracts, it expands, and everything in between. So we're like, okay, we know that in some markets we need a higher threshold, and some we need it less, and we wanted it as simple as possible. So we didn't do like a function of the, or like an ATR had to be 2 ATRs or 3 ATRs or something like that, because while that makes sense, it can be problematic, because if your ATR, average true range, is really wide, and you say you want something abnormal, let's say your ATR is normally, let's just call it 1%, like it travels 1% a day, the instrument you're looking for a follow through day, and you say, okay, I want it to be twice that, so 2x, so 2%. But then, and that's in normal times. Well, then as things come down, we saw how volatile it gets. Now your ATR expands during that time frame, unless you're looking at a really long time frame. But like, let's say it's a 21-day or 50-day ATR, or 10-day ATR, or 14 days, something small. It's going to expand. So that now maybe your ATR is like 2 at the bottom, and you're still saying that you need at least 2x or 3x that. You'll miss a follow through, because then your threshold is so dang high that you're never going to be able to pass it. Well, that's fine if you're a little scaredy cat and you don't want to have a follow through because you don't want to have egg in your face, and just say, okay, that was a follow through that failed. Like, don't get your ego wrapped up into it, man. Just like be like, okay, there's a follow through day. It means this. It means there's a potential for market change, and it's a shift in mindset from being negative to positive, and you're looking to play offense. That is really what it's about, until it fails. And by failing, we talked about that again, work that we did. You're low above a close below the low of your original follow through day, and that's when you need to start backing away. So you have your exit strategy. So don't be scared, but not that I feel strongly about that or anything, but it drove me freaking nuts to hear people like, dude, go look at a chart, man. So, anyways, that's that on the follow through percent. So 1 or 1.25. So, okay, what do you do for the 1.25? So that is the way we decided to do it. I wouldn't do it again the same way, but the way we measured it for market school was saying we would take the average of the up days only, because in down markets you get these really bad down days. The up days, your average of your up days over the last 200 days. So let's say over the last 200 days was a long enough time frame, almost, better half of a year. These trading days, obviously, that what is that average? And if it's above 1%, then we would say, okay, that's a high volatility market environment, so we need 1.25%. And if it's less than that, it is 1. Okay, so then we have that in the bag. Okay, it's 1% is what you need, 1.25 for high volatility markets. And according to Justin a couple of days ago, when I asked him, that we're still in a normal environment, not a high volatility, so we're still just looking for a 1% move currently, as we stand right here on March 8th. 2025. So that will obviously change based on the data. So 1 or 1.25, and from the orthodox standpoint, you need the volume higher than the prior day, not higher than average. Again, anyone who tells you that just hasn't done the work, because there's so many of these examples where you get a very good follow through day where your volume just isn't higher than average. Bill didn't care about it. And there's this thing that people say, oh, it's got to be, because Bill put that in the book, that it's got to be obvious and a sign of strength and everything like that. Just look at the data, man. No, like some of these are just mediocre. You're like, oh, it passes a follow through day, and then it's what happens afterwards. So getting back to the subsequent follow through days. So how we did it is we looked at every time you needed a follow through day and plotted. It took us forever, the three of us. Plotted, okay, here's a potential at 1.01%. Here's, this one on the 7th day came in at 2.3%. On the 18th day came in at 1.2 or whatever, like any of them. And then we just studied it with an open mind. Like we didn't have any, we just really did it in a purist standpoint, as much as we could, knowing that we had to fit it to Bill's mold. And it was just, we're like, wow, you notice that it doesn't seem to be the percent gain on the follow through day, the way everyone who's never really studied it says that it's got to be this convincing big day and everything. that it was really these subsequent follow through days, that it was the ones that worked almost always, almost, not always, almost, um, would have additional follow through days within that first 25-day window. And frankly, they would continue on after that, but we had to stop it at some point, right? And so we said 25 days as you were counting. But really, if we would have gone out further, I'm sure we would have noticed those as well. So again, you get your follow through day as your original signal. And then you get your subsequent follow through days or additional buy signals. From a sell signal, a close below the low of your original follow through day is material, not necessarily the other ones. That's more of an art. And of course, mixed in with what we did on the last podcast was the 21 days. So you're blending those together. Like it's a combination of both the follow throughs, kind of like, okay, it's green light. Now, how is it acting around the 21 day? And are you getting subsequent follow through days to just give you a little bit more conviction? So a funny thing. So we're doing this all on the NASDAQ. We come up with one. It was very controversial. Like we took on serious career risk doing this 1.25 stuff, man, because that did not fly with people, man. They're like, you don't know what you're doing, but they didn't do the work. Deal with it because it's true. So we did the work, and that's what the answer was based on the constraints we had. Then we were like, let's do an out of sample study and look at the S&P back in the day, because the NASDAQ started in like 72-ish, and the S&P has been around. So we were looking at either the Dow or the S&P in the 1950s, and I want to say it was like 1954 or 58. 58 was the one that Darvis did really well in, so it might have been 58. It was a really important bull market. And remember, Bill had always said that no bull market started without a follow through day. So, and you've got to remember, at this time, I'm still very orthodox. And I'm like, Bill said it was this way, so it's got to be this way and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm going back and doing this out of sample. I'm like, there was no follow through during this bull market. And I looked, and it was like, I probably looked at the Dow and the S&P, and there wasn't one. And let's say it was a Dow in 58. I could be wrong. It might be 54. And looked at it, at least with the data set that we had, there was no follow-through day. Now, there was a day that looked like a follow-through day, but it wasn't a follow-through day. Volume was higher than the prior day, but it was up like 0.92 or 0.94 or something like that. It wasn't even a rounding up to one. So it was less than 0.95. And we're like, oh, shoot. We've done all this work. We've got this workshop to teach. We've got this statement the bill has said that no bull market has started without a follow through day. Follow through is at least 1%. What in the world are we going to do? And like, we couldn't do anything without Bill's approval. So I was scared to death, and we went, and I think it was the three of us. We went to him and pointed it out, and I was scared to death to share it with him. And remind me to tell the story about the third day follow through, which is why I don't really use those. That's a topic for another day. This is already long enough. And so we bring that to him, and we're like, well, Bill, like, there was this bull market and it didn't have a follow through day. And he's looking at it, and he's like, well, there's your follow through day. And it was the day that we all wanted to be a follow through day, but it was like 0.92 up. And we're like, yeah, Bill, but it's only at 0.92. He's like, well, it doesn't matter. That's your follow through day. Like, really, Bill? Like, you caused me so much grief with its rules. It's got to be 1% or whatever. He's like, that's a follow through day. And it was like a classic looking follow through day. Like, it wasn't even questionable. It was like, it looked like a follow through day, if it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, and all that stuff. It's a duck. And so that changed our mind completely. Like, that made us feel so much different because, again, Bill was flexible when he wanted to be, or knew to be. I don't want to say wanted to be, when he knew to be flexible. And so that changes. So then we went back and studied, like, we're like, okay, well, what happens if the market gets very low volatility? What do we use? And in the market school, we came up with some rules for that. But I don't think we'll need them anytime soon, because the volatility is still high enough. But it was if the volatility gets really low, meaning like on average it like it was during that time frame, like only is trading like 0.5, like 0.5% a day, what you need. So anyways, so we came up with some other rules, and what were they? Put them in the back of this thing. And again, I'm just so proud of this work. It was fun doing a team thing. Yeah, like if the volatility was 0.4 to 0.7, we only needed got a 0.85 follow through day is what we came up with. Again, if I get a chance to redo this with Justin, we'll change those things. But that's what we came up with. Very, very controversial, but I stand by it. And so let's walk through one, and then we'll call it a day because man, this is freaking long. Well, that's what happens when you get interrupted. You kind of like reset. What was that time we're talking about? 2010. So we're going to look at 2010, and let's just so we don't fast forward. Let's just look in January. Okay, let's move this over here, and I'm gonna go. Let's see. Is that May of? I was just looking at the example. Let's just go out a little bit because we're running out of time here. My better half, I know, is wanting to go out to lunch. Well, it just does not look right for some reason. Oh, there. That's what it was. Just it wasn't blown up enough. So we're going to start off down here. Yeah, we'll just start off down there with the rally day. So we're coming down. Let's just go through this one last time. We're going to go back through. We're going to start on the 22nd. So we're underneath the 21 day, underneath the 50. We've had a bunch of distribution. We're probably looking for a follow through day, but we need a rally first. So this is our day one rally. It's up. The day before is our low that we're using. Now it's lower, but it's not in the upper half. So we're not doing anything with that. That's little mini upside reversal. So that becomes day one. We're lower. So we're in nothing. We're lower. We're nothing. Okay, day one. This becomes day one. This is day zero. So this is the low that we need to stay above. Day two. Day three. Oh, okay. Now it undercut that low. So now we're nothing again. Okay, upside reversal. So this is before what I was saying would be like kind of normal and natural for me to give it a shot because you undercut this prior marked low and add an upside reversal. So your expectation is for a move higher. So I might give it a shot here, but that's not part of the orthodox thing. You still do nothing. You're just counting day one. Day two, we held above that low. Day three, we held above that low. Day four, still above it. Day five, okay, 1.38. And the volume is higher. You can see that volume is higher than the prior day. Again, if you're looking for 1.6, 1.7, it's not there. And we're going to go forward. Just keep going forward. Oh, okay. Now this would be a follow through day in spirit. Your volume is less than your prior day, but you close above your 21 day, so that's important to me. But it's not a subsequent follow through day because the volume is higher than the prior day. Oh, no, one more day. 3 days, your low is above your 21 day, plus added kicker, a couple days above your 50. So increasing exposure. Coming back and testing your 21 day. Up 1%, but on less volume. Okay, another follow through day, 1.58. You can see it's kind of like a little mini cup with a little mini handle there. Now, um, then you're putting on the gas here because you've got a subsequent follow through day. You've stayed above is that the follow through day? Yeah. You stayed well above your follow through day low. You had a little backing and filling. If you read Bill's book, he'll talk about there's what he refers to as backing and filling after follow through is very normal and natural. You just wanted to stay above your low of your follow through, which just did. Building on itself, building. Okay, now another subsequent follow through day, 1.48, and the volume is higher. Now, is that 1.7? No. So if you were using 1.7, did you miss this rally if you're using the NASDAQ? Yeah. Now, in fairness, there's a whole three-dimensional chess where there might have been a follow-through day on this S&P or the New York or something like that. But you don't want to hope that there's a follow-through on something else. You want to be able to use your one instrument and have rules around it. And look how it's starting to trend above your 21 day now. Your low is, and now you're back into new highs. So your fail proof is if you don't get a follow through day and you're not using your 21 day, that you make it back into fresh highs, that then you're buying stock because you can't argue with the market at that point. So that is, a fail-safe rule that we put in with the market school rules because we thought of everything because we thought like, what if this thing that's never happened before happens? What do we do there? What if this other thing? And because if you know history, the biggest mistakes are people that didn't think through the what if you do a black box. And like that was the long-term capital people. If for you younger folks, look up long-term capital and the debacle there, and you had like the brightest people in the world. I think there were like a bunch of people who won like Nobel prizes in economics or something like that. They were in there, and the thing collapsed, almost brought down the market with it. And so because they didn't think through like, oh, this external event that happened. So if you're doing any rules, you always want to think, oh, what if, and I'm a little bit of a worrywart when it comes to things. And so I'm always like looking for the what if. So that's kind of your basics for follow through days. Obviously we've gone super long. So the next time we do a follow through day episode, I'm going to ask people to watch this one first, and then we'll just get into a bunch of bear market bottoms, look at those in isolation, look at it, and then do a separate one on intermediate corrections and those follow through days, and look at those and look at how to handle them when they fail. So I hope that I know this was super long, man. I apologize. Try to listen to these at 1x or 2x speed. So I'm going to wrap this up on the follow through day now. And I just want to tell a little story that this is important. I told this once, right before I left IBD in 2020, told this story on air. So if you heard this back then, sorry. But it's worthwhile. So when I was a freshman in college, and Metallica was and my son bought me this what is this Master of Puppets shirt for probably Father's Day last year or the year before, and I'm very easy to buy for. I either get mugs or I get t-shirts, so a huge fan of Metallica. I was a freshman in college, and so all my old high school buddies, we all met up to go to Metallica at Irvine Meadows. I think they've changed the name. I went to UC Irvine, and so it was down by my school, and they all drove down. I forget who was there, but going back in time, like I was the only white dude that we hung out with. My best buddy was Japanese. Another really good friend was Filipino. Another guy was Haitian. Another guy was Puerto Rican, and I forget what the other people. I didn't even think about this until later when people make such a big deal out of race. I was just raised by my parents to be colorblind. Like I just don't even, my better half is Puerto Rican. I don't even think, I don't think about race. Never, I remember my folks told me once oh, your best friend, blah, 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 growing up and, wherever we were. And I'm like, oh yeah, and then somehow it came up that the person was black. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess they were black. I didn't think of it. So people who get hung up on race, man, we're all the same. We're only skin deep, as Buddy Guy would say. So, anyways, the team of us, or the gang, we were driving down in bumper to bumper traffic on the 405 down to get to Irvine Meadows. There is a point to this that is stock related, and we see these, and we're Catholic kids. We went to Catholic boys' school. All good kids and everything. And I'm not saying we didn't drink and stuff, but that was it. And we see these two guys stranded, and they're clearly going to Metallica. You could just tell, like everyone on the freeway at that point was going to the Metallica concert, bumper to bumper. And we're like, oh man, their car broke down. It was a nice car too. Like, oh, let's give them a ride. We've got room in the van. And my parents always thought this is important. My parents said, you never pick up a hitchhiker. Never hitchhike and never pick up a hitchhiker. But we're thinking like, there's two of them. There's all of us. It's broad daylight. It was still, we were getting there early. It was still light out. And what's the worst that can happen? Like we're good Catholic kids. This is what we learned to do, is like help a brother out. Good Samaritan. So we normal looking guys, and they come in the van and we're talking to them, and before we're like, oh, we made a huge mistake. And to make this story short, I think they probably stole that car somehow. It ran out of gas or something. They had brought a screwdriver with them, and we're like, why do they have a screwdriver? But they just had a screwdriver with them, and they're like, oh, they didn't have tickets to the concert, and so they were going to scalp. So this is before you could buy tickets online and stuff. And so there were like hard tickets, and people would go outside of events and sell their ticket. And that was called scalping, and it was illegal technically. Everyone did it, but it was illegal. And they're like, oh, we don't have any money. So they're going to a concert. They don't have any money. Their car is broken down. They've got a screwdriver with them. So it's not looking good, So in my mind, I'm like, oh, shoot, listen to what my parents said. Don't pick up hitchhikers. And then next they're like, oh, here's some acid. We've got some acid. We were like straight laced kids, within reason. And we're like, shoot, we're not going to do acid, but these guys have like a weapon with them that they're treating like a weapon. And they're like, so we each like take it, like we're going to take, all right, thanks, man, this is going to be great, And so we just like all like pretend like we're taking it. And then they get there, they're like, okay, those guys have tickets. Just pull over, and they were going to stab these people for tickets. Here are these people that we brought along, trying to do a good Samaritan deed, trying to be kind, and like and so we're like, no, and I don't remember if we gave them money for a ticket, or I don't really remember. I mean, this is a long time ago. I was like 18 or 19. And so they're like, oh, okay, afterwards, let's meet up here, and we're going to go wherever, Denny's or something. Like that's how we left. And then we left them, and after the concert, such a good concert. It was Injustice for All concert. It was amazing, it was such, they're so good. And don't, like, if you're going to listen to them, I mean, don't start. My favorite album is probably Kill 'Em All. It's probably too heavy for most people. Master of Puppets is really good, but if you've never, Injustice for All is really good. But if you've never given Metallica a shot, go with the Black Album. That's more like most user friendly type of stuff. Really, really good. But anyways, so we bailed and never saw them again. But I mean, they could have killed us for our car, and which was probably their plan, as well as our tickets. So the moral of that story, the long-winded, webby moral of that story is listen to the rules, whether they're coming from Bill or whoever, or from me or from your parents. or yourself. More importantly, yourself. Listen to your own rules. Don't pick up a hitchhiker. Do not pick up a hitchhiker. Bad things can really happen. If you see someone who needs a hitchhiker, like call an Uber for them or something, but don't pick them up. And how it applies to stocks is if we don't have a follow through day, and you don't have an upside reversal, like those rare exceptions, and you're in that downtrend, don't buy. Like let's reshare this one final time. So let's with this market that we're in now, if you're swing trading, that's a little bit different because there's some exceptions there. But I'm talking about for the average person who's doing like more orthodox position style trading, don't buy in during this time. Wait for a follow through. So we've got day one. Make sure that holds, and then you get a follow through somewhere over here. Yes, if we go straight up from here, it would have been better to buy here, but you don't want to deal with that, because you'll get chopped up. I mean, just think back. I would suggest going back to, let's just go back over here during these 3 waves down. So this is November of 23. So I would suggest for your homework is I would start off down here, look for your follow through day in this January of 23 time frame. Also look for a follow through in this time frame, your March of 23, because you would have needed one in there. And then look for the ones during this time frame, and you'll find out that you get some follow through days in there that failed, follow through days in there that failed most likely. And then you wait for your follow through days. So here is day 0, here is day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. You get a 1.64. Again, if you're waiting for 1.7, it doesn't quite work for you. And the volume is higher than your prior day. So that's your follow through day. And here, let's go out a month. And then look, the very next day on the 2nd, you go through your 21 day, your lows above it. 2 days later, your lows have been above it for 3 days, and you're also above your 50 day, and you just trend above it nicely. And in a future one of these, I'll go over probably the most important discovery that we or invention that we came up with as a team was the power trend. You might have heard about it, and that's something that came out of those market school rules. But again, like wait for your signal. So whatever your signal is. Now, if you've end up doing a bunch of work and you come up with a way of buying on day 2 or buying on day 1, and you've back tested it and you believe in it, and your exit strategy, your best case, your worst case, and you want it to be part of your system, that's great, man. Like that's why I had, brought out all of these. Like there's a big difference from bill here into bill here. Like some things were the same, and some people would look at it and say it's all the same, but it's really not. Like there's subtle differences of things that he decided to drop out and things that he added and things that he changed and stuff. So it's always flexible. It's always moving. The market is always moving. So, adjust with it. And again, be kind. We'll end it this way. I was going to do an extra bonus one today on fear, but this has lasted way too long. So I'll probably do that whenever I have some time. It'll be non-stock related. And I think it's going to help me as much as it helps anyone else who watches it, to just kind of lay some things out there and just have it there for my grandkids. And then also, it's about the one time I told Bill no. And it's a fun story, and a lot of other things I was thinking about that I'll add to it. But anyways, be kind, but don't hitchhike. And till next time, peace out, guys. See ya. Hopefully this worked, because otherwise, I don't think I'm doing it again.